library staff in transferring books or storage material from the basement to the main floor. I put in $10,000 for that. It seemed like it might be a handy asset rather than stumbling upstairs.
I like it.
So, going on down to the bottom of it, when we come to the end for these numbers, I've allocated a 10% contingency, construction contingency, whatever you wish to call it, for that particular portion of the work. In addition, I've allocated another 6% for a contractor's overhead and profit, approximately 5% of that being for the contractor, 1% being for nominal inflation. So, representing a total of the $6 million. The second sheet in the presentation is a project scope content, which lists all the assumptions I made in producing the cost estimate. For example, I allowed storefront materials on the street side at $64 per square foot. That'll buy you a Conair system, which is probably what any architect will end up specifying for the project. I used for the mechanical system, air conditioning, so on and so forth, just the air conditioning and heating system of $24 per square foot. That will buy you a very sophisticated system. I've allocated $22 per square foot for electrical, which will allow you to have pretty much the state-of-the-art in electrical systems, dimming, whatever. Basically, the structure is a concrete floor, masonry on the outside. I've provided the second floor is capable of supporting the second floor load for the office area above for the city offices. I've also allowed for the stack area, should it be chosen, you could expand a full second floor over the entire footprint area. So it's already pre-designed to handle those kind of loads. The allowance figures that you see, carpet at $30 a yard, all the numbers should more than hold up in the bottom line, plus you have the 10%. Basically, that's about it. Are there questions?
Do you have a rough feel on the incremental cost of taking the stack area to a full two-story height?
If you raise it to a full story height of approximately another 10 feet, you're going to spend approximately $100,000
Oh,
to
very
raise it.
modest increment.
A very modest increment. Because it's there, the floor is there, the roof structure is there, the framing to support the second floor is there. All you're adding is skin around the outside, and it's going to be block at the rate of about $26 a square foot.
Okay, for skin masonry and windows?
Skin, for
Okay.
skin. I've assumed that the architect in their final design may utilize several elements, glass, brick, possibly stucco, metal panels, who knows? That's beyond my ken at this time. I'm not playing designer.
Yeah, that's very encouraging news to hear we could do that. Does that increase your HVAC capital cost or just operating cost? If we go to a two-story height, we
It
don't,
will increase your operating cost.
because you have twice the air volume, you bet. Okay, but not necessarily the capital side.
Not necessarily, other than the $100,000 already adventured.
Okay. Feel free,
Operating.
agency, ask questions.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, Ken.
I
A little
Pleasantly
background,
surprised.
I'll give a little background. I've known Ken for 3 years now.
3 or 4.
We actually met on a library project for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and small library project. And when Mr. Ellis asked a question about a recommendation, he was automatic for me. The projects that I know he's been involved in all have come in under budget from what he's estimated. Even the project I worked on with you, he budgeted at the beginning. It came in a little high, and by the time we got down to the GMP, we were under budget. So, and I know the same thing with Madras too, with Warm Springs Indian Tribe, did the same thing. Those have all come in at about the right budget. So these numbers, I honestly think a couple of them are high, in my opinion. I think electrical and HVAC, you can control the temperature in every room, I think, with that number. That's way up there. And I also think the supervision and supplies are a little high too, but for budgeting purposes.
For budgeting, they're probably fine. The $24 a square foot, if you were looking at a high school or a middle school, and you had any of the local architects like Dowa or someone do the design services, interface engineering might be one of the mechanical engineer systems for that. I mean, they're designers. The system they'd probably ultimately get bid out would range in the neighborhood of $22 to $25 per square foot. Same thing around electrical. Be somewhere between $19 to $24, $25 a square foot. And those are very sophisticated systems. Sometimes, in my opinion, too sophisticated. Sometimes simpler is better.
Right.
I would ask Todd if there's anything that you could dummy down or translate for me on summing up this. I think I pretty much got it, but this looks like we can do it with the money we've got.
Oh, absolutely. That's why, I mean, there's been some conversation, and I kind of want to, I'm glad you came up with the detail you did, because you look at our original budget, and you look at where it's at now, and it's a dramatic difference. But there are two different budgets. One's just a square foot estimate, which is fine. This is an actual, he took the building, blew it apart, and put it back together and detailed it. So they're two totally different estimates. But also, Ken, in going through this, I guess one of my worries would be is if someone were to look at these two budgets and go, well, crap, you just kind of just dropped the budget down. There's minimum requirements that have to happen. There's underground that has to happen, there's concrete minimum that has to happen, PSI, everything for your sidewalks. There's all minimum standards here. The only thing you can actually quote, if you want to cheapen it, would be interior finishes. And you've got plenty of money for interior finishes. I mean, you've got solid oak doors, am I correct?
Well,
For doors and hardware, you got $1,000 a door.
right. On the summary sheet
Jeez.
for the city offices, you'll see that I allowed 30 offices. So I provided 30 separate rooms, walls, solid doors, ornamental frames, radar, $1,000 per door.
We don't have to have 30 offices, do we?
Depends on how you want to design it.
That's another discussion. That's another night.
That's a designs question, yeah.
Well, the other thing is the detail he went through, adding the dumbwaiter, I didn't even thought about that, but he also added movable partitions for
Movable partitions.
the library to separate off rooms.
Like meeting rooms.
Yeah.
It's carpet tile for easier move. Everything is there.
Great.
I can't think of anything that, I'm sure that when it's bid out, you'll probably be happy. It just depends when you get that architect staff on board, how closely you ride herd on them to control them.
That was my,
Well, that's probably the
that was my
discussion.
question was, excuse me, was how much are we going to see this inch up once the architects get involved? And they like to plan, replan, and redesign.
So I
Easiest
came
way-
through the CMGP process can you go through that process so they can,
Sure. The CMGC, Construction Manager General Contractor, it's a very common system. Practically every school now done in Oregon is done through that system. It's cost-effective because it keeps costs under control. It gets a buy-in in all the team members, the contractor, the design teams. And it saves time, which is money. So you choose that method, you put yourself an architect on board. Remember one thing if you remember nothing else. When you put that architect on board, make sure he has a clear direction as to what you feel money he has to work with. You've got to illustrate that to him. And make that very clear that you can toast his feet to the fire later on. And then when you do that, then he'll develop some plans. There's what they call, he'll have conceptual. I like to see an architect prepare a conceptual plan to make sure everybody's on the right page. And it's nothing more than just thin little sketches like I've done, a little grander in architectural style. But that gives you a good idea where you're going. Then he'll develop schematic plans, which represent approximately 30% of completed plans. And at that time, you need to be thinking seriously about hiring a contractor under that methodology. You get that contractor on board, that contractor needs to prepare you a cost estimate on those plans, brief as they are. If I can do this, I know he can do more with 30% plans. So he gives you a cost, that's your yardstick to see if you're on task. Are you on time? Is it working money-wise? If it is, then you proceed to the next stage, which is design development, which will take you to 60 or 70 or whatever you wish, percentage complete of documents. At that time, your contractor provides another estimate to make sure you're still on task, cost and budget and time. And again, I harp on time because it's a big thing. And then you'll proceed to the next phase. Eventually, the goal is to develop a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price, or in my terminology, a guaranteed minimum price. But the guaranteed maximum price will be the scope in your document contract. And at that time, you'll be working off of 80% plans, 85% plans. And he will give you a fixed price with a set of criteria as how he arrived at that. Now that's your next thing to remember. When he gives you that GMP price, it's absolutely essential that he give you a complete listing of what he's going to do, and more importantly, what he's not going to include. And what he's not going to include, make sure he tells you why and what he thinks it will cost. In other words, I'm not going to do that item, but I think it's probably worth $10,000. That's vital for you to make decisions on. It'll eliminate a lot of mistakes later on. And then you arrive at your GMP, everybody's happy, you like what you've got, contract, begin.
Based on your experience for this type of project, would you advocate fully building out the second floor?
I really can't speak to that, that's a city decision.
Okay.
At this time, probably not. Probably just build your half. Now, the way this stack area, I've set it up, the ceiling and the plywood underneath, because I'm looking at exposed trusses. So the plywood is at approximately 16 feet, 17 feet off the floor. By the time the trusses clear it, you're at about 13 to 14 feet off the floor. So you have plenty of room for your stacks. I've included 4 10 by 10 cowl wall skylights above that, in addition to your regular lighting, which will provide natural light, plus your window wall systems. So, but at this time, no.
Did you mean taking it to a two-story height or building city offices all the way across?
No, I meant like, and I didn't explain it very well, but say you were going to build a full, on the outer walls and the roof structure of the whole building, a two-story building, and then on the second floor, you just built out half of it, so that if you ever want to add that floor in the future.
That's what these prices represent.
Oh, okay.
These prices represent half of the second floor is built completely.
Okay.
It's carpeted, it's got 25 offices up there, restrooms, all sorts of things.
With about $100,000 if we wanted walls all
If
the
you
way
want to
up.
raise it higher to
Okay.
accommodate
That's-
that.
That's what that was, we were talking about.
Thanks.
And then, of course, your second floor extension, 13,000 square feet, when you choose to expand it into that.
Very good.
Well, Ken, this has been the most enchanting presentation I've had
Enchanting.
since I've been on the council. It's just delightful to hear you talk and your years of experience that you bring on this. 2 questions here. First on, did you have the benefit of seeing the materials that had been prepared for what was the original Second Avenue
When I met with
Library?
Mr. Ellis and Amanda, they showed me the documents that were prepared for this facility here, which was done by Fletcher Farr Architects. I know them because the Hilton Hotel Convention Center in Vancouver that they did, I did.
Well,
So-
my question on that is, as you were walking us through the different steps, one of the things that I think we can say perhaps we have an advantage of from having gone through that exercise is that we already have a community vision that has been vetted on the look and feel of a library. And I know there's no way dollar for dollar we would ever receive back what we put into that. But in terms of time and being able to go to an architect of saying, you know, here's what the community originally decided it wanted, and now we want to build it on this lot. Does that gain us anything at all of significance?
You'll get lip service.
Okay.
I mean, I tend to be blunt. So, you'll get lip service is what you'll get.
Okay.
When you get around to that stage of the game, you'll issue an RFP for architects. And the information that you put in that RFP is vital, that it be conveyed to them what you're really expecting. And an on-site meeting prior to their proposals being due is mandatory for that, I believe. Walk them through the theater site. Walk them through what was done. Show them whatever you choose to show them, but be firm in what you're trying to communicate to them. Now, my simple sketch probably illustrates very likely, at least in the mediums that they're going to come up with. I mean, there's going to be concrete, there's going to be masonry, there's going to be storefront. Those elements are there, they're just going to be there. They're not going to be able to deviate, I wouldn't think, radically from that, and that was in the same vein as what Fletcher Farr presented to you.
Okay. And then the second one, in the same blunt vein that you gave as your assessment, quick assessment on the Third Avenue property, what do you think about this theater property as a site?
Of the two, wholeheartedly, I would endorse that. It's easier to build, it has a few hurdles to get over, like the street vacation, but it's more serviceable to the community. Yes, the other site adjacent to the park is nice, but it's just awfully constricted. Down there, you have the opportunity to serve, I believe, a long-term community need. You can expand your library as much as you need or as small as you need. You have full facilities for probably 40 years down the road. I don't see, at least not in my lifetime, you changing things.
Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. And Todd, thank you for bringing him to us.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Amanda?
Take the lead.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Drive careful.
I just wanted to add a clarification that we had tasked him with putting together some general construction costs, not including land use fees, building fees,
Right.
furniture and equipment, relocation costs, all that. So there's a known quantity that will be in addition to what he proposed, what he put together.
And we probably churned some of those numbers before, so
Yep,
probably have
yep.
some idea of what
Right.
that's going to be.
Well, relocation costs should be significantly less since we're
Right.
not playing the shell game and, right, we moved once.
Good presentation.
Okay, very good, thank you. Moving on, next we have updates. Renata, Jamie?
If he ever comes back, I'm going to task him with being a volunteer. I love his enthusiasm and his bluntness. It's great. Although I have lots of really great volunteers as of right now. So Downtown Candy First Friday was Friday, March 7th. I saw some of you down there. We had five or six businesses participate, but we also had the addition of the New History Minstrels, which is a barbershop quartet. They came downtown, and I think for the most part, if the business was open, they were inside it. And so I was at Red Door Antiques with my younger sister, who's 20 and very cool, and has no need for pretty much anything that I think is neat. And they walked in, and she turned into a little kid, as did everybody else in the place. It was it just added a really fun element to First Friday. they sang and they do a little bit of history about, typically they do Canby history. I think at that time they were doing just history in general, but talk about enthusiasm and just bringing something neat to the table. So I think that we're going to try and have them again. They've participated before, but we really did a push for having them go into all the businesses, and it was just a really fun addition. The downtown draw for this month will be Salon L. Salon L is located at 266 North First Avenue. They opened their salon in September 2012 downtown. They're right next to Ladybug Chocolates. And they have been active in First Friday promotions. I think that they're open during General Canby Days. They won our Halloween window decorating display contest with, they put owls, and it was something like, "Owl love to do your hair." They're just creative, and they're excited, and so we talked with Lizzie Morris, who is the owner of that salon, about what they have, and so look for that in our Facebook newsletter. The Historic Review Board officially approved the move of the historic Mac House on Wednesday, February 12th, and we met again on March 3rd. The group is really working because we had been awarded a grant before the group was actually put together. So we're working on crossing some of those things off of our list. We're going out for an intensive level survey, which will have somebody who knows a lot more than I do about history and historic preservation come and take a look at some of the buildings that were identified in a 2009 survey done downtown. So that is probably the first step. Then we will get our plaques up and do some training. That group has been really, they want to know where we can take this in the future. So we've talked about doing a heritage trail, which other communities like Aurora have, that takes that information about the historic sites and doesn't just say there are plaques out there, go find them. It says here's a flyer, here's a promotion, here's an event, and makes it more of a tourist destination. So I'm really excited, taking just my historic preservation hat off, and just as a Main Street person in general, is finding ways to get the people engaged with our history from a tourism standpoint. I think is going to be really great. The Crooked Cottage opened at 261 North Holly Street, just right down there. And people say, where exactly is that? And I say, right across from the Place to Be, or right across from the library. The little house. And they said, oh, the Crooked Cottage. Katina Fitch is the one that opened that. And like many of our downtown business owners, she just had a passion. She started at the farmer's market. She sold some of her creations on Etsy, and it just became time for her to be her own boss. And so she opened up a business. She was lucky enough to open during the first Friday in February, which I wasn't able to attend because it was snowing and I didn't want to go out. So she said that it was a blessing in disguise, because she said while she wanted everybody to come, when you're first opening businesses, you want a little bit of a break. So she was able to slowly bring people in. It's a really cute shop. They have soaps, lotions, jewelry, art, and she's working with local artists, which is really important to her. So if you haven't already, please stop by. She says she's open funny hours. She's open Saturdays through Wednesdays, typically 10 to 4. Sundays it's 10 to 2, and then Thursdays and Fridays she's closed. So if you're down and you're getting your coffee and walking around downtown, please stop by. The Arts and Culture Alliance of Canby has been meeting pretty regularly. The last time that we met was on March 10th, but at the meeting before that, the group decided on vision statement, but a mission statement, which was to promote arts and culture in Canby by encouraging artistic and cultural awareness, developing new projects, preserving the past, emphasizing our creative diversity. And most of the members were able to be there, and everybody was really engaged and really wanted to make sure that the mission statement not only encompassed what we envisioned for the group, but also found ways to really touch on all of the different aspects that make Canby so great, diversity being one of the big ones. We've also started to talk about projects that we think would be important, including a public art installation with a possible focus on music. It could be, the group is really excited for it to be interactive, where if a 4-year-old decides to climb on it, they aren't going to get hurt, and they're not going to get yelled at. They noted that some of these cities around us, that they have these beautiful art installations, and the first thing that you see is the do not touch sign. And so that was one of the things that was really, really important, was for it to be interactive and you could touch, play, and be. And then we had the facade improvement from the Davies Clinic earlier tonight that you all approved. And so we will work with her and get going so that she can make her dreams a reality. Any questions?
Good job, Jamie.
Questions,
Thank you.
comments?
Good job, Jamie.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Renata?
Of course, if anybody wants to see pictures of the moving of the Mac house, I posted a couple dozen on Facebook, so.
Very good.
It was a very early, very cold morning, but it was interesting, at least for my son. My daughter, I don't think she's
Not
so
so much,
thrilled.
Thank you.
We had to take her to breakfast after that.
Pay for it.
Great. All right, we continue to work with Project Sparkle. I talked with the president in late February, and they still have Canby on their radar screen. He was distracted by other things earlier in the year, so the timing of their interest has delayed a little longer than they even had anticipated, but they're still very much looking at Canby, so I'll keep you posted as we move forward. In terms of our industry cluster, the next one up would be agriculture and food processing. We're now looking at a date sometime in mid-April. It'll be held at the Place facility from 8 to 9:30. And Amy Nguyen has agreed to be our gracious business facilitator. She brings a lot of expertise both on the processing side as well as her ties to food growers. So she seems uniquely positioned to lead that discussion. In terms of regulatory streamlining, I'm happy to report that we went to the Planning Commission on Monday with a proposal on how to expedite development review in the industrial park. We're basically proposing that for projects that fit the criteria, that they could be approved by the planning director as opposed to going to the planning commission. That would shave a minimum of 20 to 30 days off of the process and reduce costs to businesses by at least $1,500, up to $5,000 in application fees. And more importantly, it provides certainty to the customer or to the developer and the company that if they meet the criteria, they'll get a quick answer and they will be able to move forward, which is very important to them. So we're very encouraged about that. They gave their approval in concept. We'll be coming back to them with the specifics of the language changes for their approval in mid-April, and then it'll be coming before you to look at and approve as well. So in theory, if everything goes smoothly, this could be in place by June-ish. And then finally, I had mentioned Open Counter and that I'd share more details about that. I developed a flyer for you to refer to. This morning, we had our first project team meeting, and we're partnering with our colleagues at the Clackamas County Building Department, colleagues at Canby Utility, as well as our business license staff at the city office, as well as our development services team, to make sure that we are including all of our fees, all of our applications, all of our processes, so that when businesses come to look at Open Counter, they're getting the complete picture and they're getting accurate information about the time it's going to take and the costs that they're going to incur and the types of permits that they need to apply for. Very excited about this. It's an online opportunity for businesses to get a quick look, a quick feel for what it would like to locate in Canby. And it can go beyond just the permitting side. There's a GIS interface here. The business can say, I'm looking to do this kind of business, and it will search our zoning code, determine what the proper zone is for that use, and look at a map and say, and these are the areas where you could locate this kind of business. Oh, and by the way, here's a list of available sites and buildings that would fit in this zone. And by the way, here's a connection to the incentives and the programs that the community provides to help you as you move forward. So what we're doing is providing really good information to businesses looking to locate in Canby. When they come to our office, then, they're much better informed, and we can have a much more in-depth and productive conversation with them. And that reduces the load on staff as well. So as background, we did a lot of due diligence on this company. It's a very innovative new product. We talked with 4 communities already using this service, and all of the reviews have been glowing about how well it's working, how responsive they are, how good the system is working. So we're excited about it. We're working on the implementation stage now. It should take about 2 months to get into place, and then we'd be looking to unveil it probably in June as well. So that's my report. Do you have any questions?
Who's doing the actual work on that?
It's a contractor called Open Counter.
It is Open Counter themselves, okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Thank you, Renata.
Thank you.
Also, in the spirit of updates, I sent to the agency Kurt McLeod's status report on Sequoia Parkway. For the public, we're looking at an early April opening. They have a little bit more concrete pouring to do, and then they need a stretch of good weather to do the asphalt. But early April looks good. I credit Commissioner Parker with bringing to my attention that as we move forward on the Civic Center process and get into construction, we'll need to be thinking about what sort of bar do we want to set for when we as a agency want to be notified about construction issues. Every construction project has issues, but some will bug us more than others, and there's going to be some comfort level that we're going to want to hear about when there's issues. So no decision tonight, but be thinking about that, what you want to be advised about, what you don't. We'll need to get that to Amanda, and then ultimately to our CMGC and project managers.
And as a note, I've already asked Greg Ellis, I would very much, obviously I can't as commissioner or city councilor, but I want to be part of the construction team. I want to sit in those meetings, because I know the talk, and I know the BS that comes out of, I'm a GC, I know how it works, so.
You can be our mole.
I want to be a part of that, I want to protect the city.
Thank you.
And I'll do it as a volunteer part, so.
Very good. Other questions, comments? Anything?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think it's been a huge benefit that you brought to the table. Thank you.
All righty. Amanda, before we move on, any other business that you have?
Nope.
One more opportunity for citizen input tonight. Anybody?
No, but.
We're okay?
Yep.
All righty. Any executive session tonight?
Nope.
No executive session. With that, I thank the agency for their time. I thank Canby. I need a motion.
I move that we adjourn, sir.
I'll second that.
And it's been moved by Vice Chair Hodson and seconded by Commissioner Hensley that we adjourn. Any discussion or debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you. Good night, Canby.
Question for you.